Welcome back, everyone, to Common Sense Choices, and I'm Linda Toupin. Well, hello, welcome. If this is your very first time, pull up a chair, enjoy the conversation, and watch the video. I'm on Apple and Spotify, but these two episodes that we've done since the beginning of 2023, it's kind of weird to hear yourself say that, isn't it? 2023 are really videos because we are in a cooking series and it is so much fun. And today you're going to meet one of my very best friends, and she's going to take you on a tour of her kitchen. And she has accumulated some wonderful cooking supplies over her lifetime that she wants to share with you. And last week, you heard from Leah and Jenny and that wonderful flour that you see over in the background. I'm getting ready to do some major baking today. I've got a big crew of people coming in here tomorrow. And over there's all my stuff from my 2 crock pots of food that I'm getting ready to make. But you learned about a very special einkorn flour. It is the oldest flour in the world, and it's the only non-hybridized one in the world. And it's different to cook with and bake with, but so much healthier. So if you missed that episode, go check it out. Well, anyway, you guys, this podcast, Common Sense Choices, is based on my mantra that's pretty much guided my professional life. Now, normally, I'm not facing this direction in my house. Normally you don't see my kitchen, but I flipped it around, and normally you are seeing my living room, and over there is a 7-foot piece of art. And that piece of art has our mantra on it. So let's say it together. I am where I am by the choices I have made, or I've allowed others to make for me. It's personal responsibility. And everything that we do in this podcast is designed to give you courage to make different choices with your life. They say that we make 35,000 choices a day. No wonder you're tired when your head hits the pillow. And they seem insignificant, but they aren't, because they accumulate into your habits and into your thoughts. And so if you want to change your life, you have to change your choices. And so over at lindatoupin.com, that's T as in Tom, O-U, P as in Peter, I-N, you will find my little store. And it's going through some construction, so I'm not for sure when you're going to see this episode. So if you get over there and some link doesn't work, it's kind of like the interstate. It's kind of like a mess. But my new store over there is actually going to be completely controlled by me. And I've had wonderful help up until now, but I want to touch everything that goes out to my audience myself for quality control. You'll probably even get a note from me, but everything over there has my mantra on it. And we're going to be adding new things this year. Right now, we have our coffee mug, which is our most popular item with our mantra on it. We also have these darling little kitchen magnets. And then, of course, another really popular item is our 8x8 canvas print that should be in your children's bedroom, in your office, your classroom, with our mantra on it. Now, you can hang that on the wall. It comes with a little hook, or you can get one of these little stands. We are going to be adding some new items this year. And because of the cooking series, I have to show you, I'm going to work with a wholesaler and have this apron made. Wouldn't you love an apron that says choices? And I love it. It's a cottage apron. See how big it is? It's really big, got these huge pockets. And then in the back, you see it doesn't tie. It has this like crisscross. Do you love it? Okay, as soon as I get it, you can buy it over at my store, which supports our podcast. But the reason you want to go to lindatoupin.com initially is to sign up so that you don't have to think about me. I'll think about you every time there's an episode, and it will be emailed to you. So be sure to sign up. And we live in the age of security, and everything's 2 steps now. So if you're not getting them, it's possible that you still got an email waiting in your junk, spam, or promotions tab saying, hey, do you want to receive these emails? And you do have to confirm that you do. So anyway, that's the very best way to get them. I'm also on YouTube, Linda Toupin Common Sense Choices. I'm also on Facebook, Linda Toupin Common Sense Choices. Now, you guys, be sure to comment and share. That's a choice. And when you do, your name will be entered into a drawing. And last week, our winner was, drum roll please, Dawn Barton. Congratulations, Don. You're going to get something wonderful from my store mailed to you. So be sure and email me, linda@lindatoupin.com, with your home email address. So let's bring her on the air because today she's going to take us on a tour of her kitchen and all the tools that she's accumulated in her life. Now, guys, you're not going to go out and buy all this stuff today. That's not how it works. You accumulate beautiful, high quality kitchen utensils over the course of a lifetime. So let me bring her on right now. Hey, Robin, good morning. Robin, we're going to need to unmute you there, girl.
Okay, well, good morning, Linda. How are you?
Oh, Robin, I'm good. You're in Charlotte, North Carolina. How's the weather down there today?
Beautiful, sunny. It's supposed to be a high 52, which is perfect weather for me.
Right.
We had
like hot weather.
We had 68 yesterday, and it was too hot for the winter to me. I'm sure all the people watching that live in Minnesota and Michigan and places like that are like, bring on the 68-degree weather. But we don't just have warmer weather, we have humidity that goes along with it. So it's not really great for walking, but today is just beautiful.
Oh, well, we are in love with the fact that you're with us today. You look great in red, by the way. That's a perfect apron color for you. You had on before we got started, and you changed it. You had a very special apron that might surprise people. What did that apron say?
It's a Beatles apron, and it's a yellow submarine apron, and it actually has a little tiny yellow submarine down on the bottom of it. Because I'm a major Beatle fan.
You are a major music guru. That's what you are. How many albums, CDs do you even own? Do you even know?
Over 4,000 CDs.
I love it. I love
it. But now I need to, they're all streaming now, so it really doesn't do a lot of good. However, I probably have 1,000 albums from back when you and I were growing up that, they still make albums today, but
my daughter's a musician. She releases every song on a vinyl before it goes anywhere else. So that's very in vogue.
The sound is better.
Yeah.
Yes, I am a major music person.
Well, before we find out a little bit about your cooking background and and why this is of interest to you, you also are a wonderful coach and teacher, and you work with people individually on other things other than food. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I have helped a lot of people with their money management, learning how to set a budget, how to get out of debt, because all of those things I learned when I started my own business and mastered them with the help of somebody else. In fact, what I know now is, just from what other people have taught me, but I've also been able to successfully teach a lot of people how to not just manage their money, but to grow it as well.
Well, and I've seen you take people who had systems, but they just needed to improve them. And I've seen you take people who had no clue what they should be doing as far as managing money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And really and truly, Linda, most people really don't have money systems. Even people in business, my dad had his own business growing up, and he was the worst money manager in the whole wide world. I mean, he was an electrical contractor, but later opened a restaurant. And when somebody would come like to deliver bread, he would just take money out of the register to pay them with. And I mean, at the time, even though I knew nothing about managing money, I knew, even in my early years, that's not the thing you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to put Robin's contact information in the text above this podcast, so you will be able to reach out to her if that's a need of yours. But today we're really talking about food. We're talking about the kitchen. We're talking about learning to prepare nutritious meals. And that was really Jenny and Leah's focus with the einkorn flour. It's not just baking. Let's bake with healthy food. And you have really, you're such a great cook. And oh my gosh, during COVID, you lost your smell and taste. You still have lost your smell and taste, but you still cook these amazing meals.
Yeah, well, that's very true. That's very true. So As you probably know, because you met my mother, I grew up watching her cook. She put a hot meal on the table every night when Rocky and I were growing up, my older brother, who's 20 months older than me. And even though I really didn't get in the kitchen with her, the only time I got in the kitchen was when my mother and dad went off, and Rocky and I would get in the kitchen and make the biggest mess you have ever seen. One time we tried to make taffy when we were kids, and when they came home, the kitchen was a complete disaster. I really honestly didn't start learning to cook though until I had a college roommate who grew up on a farm in North Carolina. And as a matter of fact, her daddy raised beef and she worked in the meat packing plant and learned how to slaughter beef. And so by the time she and I became roommates, she taught me everything in the world that she knew about cooking, not just cooking and putting a meal on the table. She taught me how to bake, like how to make a spinach souffle and things like that, that I really didn't grow up necessarily seeing mama do. So I think I probably have to attribute a lot of my cooking skills and my desire to cook to Connie. I started out cleaning the kitchen while I was watching her cook. But then slowly but surely, I began to cook myself. And most of my life, I have been single. And I have almost, other than when I was traveling, I've almost cooked a meal every single night of my life, even when it was just me.
Well, and I love it when you and I are talking and I ask you how often you eat out, and your response is everything I fix is far superior to even the nicest, highest end restaurants. And I was like, good point, Robin.
Yeah, it is. I mean, case in point, Mom and I went out to dinner last night because I was trying to get my kitchen ready for what I was going to do with you this morning. And I said to her, I can't cook dinner tonight. And it was okay, but I ate about half of the dinner because if I'd fixed it at home, it would have been 100% better. But, you know, sometimes you just have to make choices to do something different. But I am a better cook than what we can get out. So, but can I also say that organic food and shopping for organic products came into my life probably, Linda, I'm going to say almost 30 years ago, when a very dear friend of mine developed something called multiple chemical sensitivities and became allergic to almost everything you can imagine, from food to fragrance to detergents to the smell of the exhaust in a car, to everything you can imagine. And as she, and this was way before anybody had ever heard of organic. So as my friend began to seek out ways to reduce the chemical sensitivities that she had and to get rid of chemicals in her life, I began to learn, as she sought out information, to help herself get well, because she really went down a major rabbit hole with this multiple chemical sensitivities, to the point that she was reduced to eating 3 foods, and those were only things that she could make. And so what I began to understand and learn from watching her is that pesticides are about the worst thing in the world that we can do to our body. And that sent me on my own mission to get healthy with the food that I put into my body. And so today I try to eat almost 100% organic for that reason, just because I know that pesticides and fruit in particular have so many pesticides sprayed on them. And every day we ingest that stuff. We ingest chemicals all day with not just the food we eat, but with the things that we put to washing our clothes. So, you know, it's kind of like a glass with water dripping in it. Our body is like a glass. And as water drips into the glass, eventually it's going to overflow. And that's how our bodies are with chemicals. And I watched my friend, and I in turn began to do things to eliminate as many of the chemicals that I could, which organic food was a huge part of that. The other thing I did is, when I moved into this house in 1991 on Halloween Day, I sought out a chemical-free paint made in a company in Knoxville, Tennessee. And at that time, the paint was $40 a gallon, but it had no outgassing. And so when I walked into my house, it had just been freshly painted. Unlike most people, there was not one smell of paint because that was a chemical that was really detrimental. So anyway, organic became familiar and a part of my everyday life long before the average person had ever heard of organic, all because of the major health issues of my good friend. And this path of chemical-free living as much as possible also had an impact on my dog, who's laying here beside me now. And I began to research just how awful dog food really is and what it contains, chemicals and byproducts that they really shouldn't eat.
Right.
My motto is, I don't feed her anything I won't eat. So before I got Abigail, I'm going to say one more thing. Before I got Abigail, I took my Jack Russell Terrier to a homeopathic vet, and she recommended an all organic diet for her. She was 5 at the time and lived to be over 16. My current dog, Abigail, who is a Havanese, she has never in her life had dog food.
Wow.
When she came to my house, the first meal she had was all organic, and it consists of a lot of greens and a little bit of ground up organic turkey. And she has salmon, seared salmon that I cook for her and put it in the refrigerator, and organic broccoli for lunch every day. And she's the only
we're going to put this recipe and actually a picture of this with this podcast. We'll pull it up. We'll go ahead and pull that up on the screen because that was one of the first things that fascinated me about you, Robin, is that you didn't just live healthy. Your animal lived healthy, and you prepared a crock pot full of food for that dog every week. You froze it. We'll have pictures of that. Yeah. And the dog has never eaten any chemicals from regular dog food.
Never. Yeah, never. And she never will. And, I think that dogs are what they eat too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, really.
Well, before we switch over and we move into the kitchen, in fact, let's just go ahead, Robin, while you're doing that, I'll talk to everybody. And so I'll just go ahead and remove you, and you can close that down and log in the kitchen. How's that?
Okay, that sounds great.
Well, one of the things that you're starting to see here with these series is I'm not just bringing people in here who can cook. There are a lot of people who can cook, but people who have made it their mission to be as healthy as humanly possible. When Leah talked to you last week about what has happened to the wheat industry and what has happened to wheat in general, and why there's 18 million people who can't digest wheat, you begin to see a pattern. And just like Robin, even though she was way ahead of the bell curve, way ahead of the bell curve, 30 years ago, millions, tens of millions of you out there realize now you just can't go to the grocery store, pick up a can or a box of something and think, oh, this is really healthy for me. That's just not how it's going to work. And so I hope that you're seeing a trend here with all of that. All right, Robin, we're going to pull you in here. Now, one of the first things you're going to notice about Robin's kitchen is she doesn't have this large, huge, spacious kitchen. She has more of a traditional triangle. I'm a home ec teacher. From that refrigerator to the stove to the sink, it's supposed to be a triangle. And she really, truly has that set up. She doesn't have a ton of storage as far as her kitchen cabinets nor her counter space, but it is effective for her. Now, she's got a lot of stuff sitting out there today because she wanted to show you all of the tools that she uses and containers and utensils. And so I think everyone can relate. But again, many of these are very high end. And there's a reason, because there's a reason things cost more than other things, because they're better. They last longer. They can be passed on from generation to generation. They're so good, but you pick those up a little bit at a time. I go to Tuesday Morning and Home Goods all the time, you guys, and a lot of things she's going to talk about, if you're looking for them, you can find them in those type of discounted situations. So Robin, where are we starting today, girl?
Okay, the first thing I want to do, you can hear me okay, but you can't see me, right?
That is correct. We are looking at some bowls.
Yeah, well, so the first thing I want to talk about is let me just say that as a beginner, I did not have anything, and I did accumulate what I have over the course of years. And I did a lot of reading to understand things about cooking. I mean, I love cookbooks, but you have to read the notes and the things in a recipe to learn the things that you need, the tools that you need. But because I have to be fairly organized because my kitchen is small. One of the first things I did was buy these buckets that you see here that I'm pointing to. And like, I use the einkorn flour, but I also use sunrise flour. And I use also sometimes I use King Arthur flour. So what I do is I bought these buckets you can get them on Amazon and you can get them from King Arthur, and they cost the same. It doesn't matter where you get them. KingArthurBaking.com or on Amazon. And, you just ask for flour buckets. And I don't put just flour in them, but the thing that I do is I label them with the kind of flour that's in it. So it's easy for me to pick up whichever one I want to make. Like early this morning, I made sourdough bread with sunrise flour. But having what you need organized makes a huge difference in how quickly you get things done. The other thing is back to my comments a few minutes ago about using things that are organic and that don't have a problem with pesticides and that sort of thing. I think as much as you can, you should store things in glass and not in plastic. I mean, that's one of the first things I learned is that plastic is really not good for you. So I buy Pyrex dishes from Amazon, and I put as many things as I can in those for the refrigerator. Obviously, you can't store everything in glass in the freezer, but you can certainly put your food in the refrigerator in glass rather than plastic. Okay, so the blue buckets that you see came from King Arthur flour. And anytime I'm going to put something in the refrigerator for just a short period of time, I use these nesting bowls because they're much healthier for you than just say some kind of Glad wrap or Ziploc containers that you buy at the grocery store. And then my favorite bowls to use for cooking are made by a brand called Le Creuset. And you'll see the darker blue sitting right there on my counter. And then, I said a minute ago that the Pyrex glass dishes are what I really use for a more permanent storage in the refrigerator, just because plastic is not good for us. It has a chemical base to it. And once again, it's just not really that good for our systems. And so those things kind of take care of most of my storage and what I use to keep things in. I will move over here a minute and show that glass container in the bottom right corner of the screen, right in front of the clock. That is called a WEC, WCK jar. Linda, you probably are familiar with it. Those are the best jars in the world to use if you're going to make bread and need a starter. That's really what those are designed for. They're the coolest jars in the world, and they're on Amazon. You'll also see, I'm just going to talk for a few minutes, if that's okay, about some of the appliances that I've learned to use. My favorite appliance is the KitchenAid small stand mixer that I use for a lot of baking. Behind that, you can see that there's a food processor. And I'm going to try to move this without making am I going too fast here, Linda?
That's fine.
Okay, so you can see that is a food processor that I use to make biscuits and various things with scones. But this is a French-made mixer called Magimix, Magimix, and it's magimix.com. And it's the best mixer you could ever want. I have this size, and then I have the bigger size of that. Also, the same is true with this KitchenAid stand mixer. I have this size, which is the mini, and then I have the larger. But my mother lives with me, and so my cooking is primarily for she and I, and that's all I need. When I'm making even cookies or whatever, that's all I need for that. So I'm going to turn around and go behind me and go over toward my stove and try to do it without going too fast. I want to talk about my knives and how important knives are to your ability to cook and to keep them sharpened. You can see I have a knife block with a zillion knives in it. And I use Wolfstoff knives that are German-made knives. I also have a couple of other kind of knives in there, but mostly I use the German-made knives. Down on the countertop, I put these things out here so y'all can see. I use a lot of parchment paper. Parchment paper is the best thing in the world to cook cookies on. Anytime I make bread, like this morning, I made this loaf of bread right here, and I put the bread on parchment paper before I actually put it into the Dutch oven to cook it. And then you can easily lift it out. But I use parchment paper even to cook roasted vegetables on it for dinner at night. I also use these really cool bags from King Arthur Flour, double bread bags and all-purpose bags. And you can see from my bread that I made this morning that's what one of those bags is. They're bread bags, but I also take them with me to the organic market every Saturday morning, and I store all of my greens in these bags. And every time I go to the market, inevitably somebody wants to know, where did you get those bags? Because they are the nicest bags in the world. Now all of the vendors at the market use them personally at home. They don't use them to give to the customers to put greens in because they cost too much. Because like a bag of 100 of the all-purpose bags, I think, are somewhere around $19.99. So that's not exactly what the vendors want to give out. But for your needs and for cooking at home, my gosh, they're the best bags you could ever want. You can also see, Linda, that I have all of my cooking stuff over here. And I have 3 different containers that I keep all of my utensils in: spatulas, tools to get things off of a cookie sheet, and then all the things I use there in the back that grate cheese or grate up the skin of an orange or a lemon if I'm cooking something, excuse me, and I need lemon zest. I also grow my own garlic, so you can see I have lots of garlic here from my garden that I harvested back in May, and I have garlic growing outside that will stay in the ground all winter, and then I'll harvest it around May or June. I also have this is a really nice thing that holds a lot of my utensils that I cook with. And one of my favorite places to shop is a place called Williams Sonoma. And Linda's going to have a piece of paper that will show where you can link to the website for all of these various places I shop from. Williams Sonoma is a little bit pricey, but like Linda said in the beginning, you kind of pay for what you get. And these things, I have had them for years and years and years. The primary 2 places I shop is Williams Sonoma and King Arthur Baking. And I do look on Amazon, but I have come to realize that King Arthur Baking, it's a employee-owned company. They really try to price match. So whatever you see on Amazon, if they sell it at King Arthur, it's usually the same price. But you can see that I have like my all of my measuring cups and all of that, all of these things, my biscuit cutters, they all come from King Arthur Flour. My favorite cookware is Le Creuset. You can see the name of it right there. Lecreuset. It's French cookware, the best pots you can buy. They're heavy as lead. My mother says that the heavier the pot, the better it is. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. They cook better. In addition to that, I use all-clad and I use stainless. And the reason I do is because, once again, I don't believe in using cookware that has a non-stick bottom to it, because once again, that's chemicals going into your food that go into your body when you cook in a non-stick pan. So as you can see, they're stainless steel. They're not non-stick. I also told Linda a couple days ago that I have a new stove. It's an induction oven. And basically what that means is when you put a pot on the oven, like you can probably see that there's a great big space here to cook a real big pot on there, or a saucepan or a saute pan. But the area of the induction oven will only heat wherever the pot is.
That is
sitting.
so cool.
Yeah. And so even after, like if I cook something and I move it off of the stove and I put my hand down, my hand cannot feel hot.
Really?
But it could have been at a full boil, and I moved the pot away from the oven and there's no heat.
No, are you kidding me?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I bought this oven, because my mother is losing her eyesight, and I did not want her to come near the oven and take the chance of burning herself. And so that was very appealing to me, the induction oven. Plus,
What is the brand of that?
It's a Frigidaire. And as you can see, it says induction.
Really? That's
But
cool technology.
Yeah, and it's also very energy efficient, because I can put the pot on the oven, on the stovetop, and hit the button to turn it on right here. I'm gonna just show you. So if I hit turn it on and hit the plus sign, P, what that does, in 2 minutes, it'll bring whatever's in the pot to a boil. That's how quick it responds. Yeah, which is really cool. Okay, so Linda, do you have any questions for me?
Let's just flip it around so I'm looking at you. Is the organic market is something you do every week and have for years? And we'll throw up pictures of her organic market right now. So I'm sure all the farmers know you. And I think a lot of people would say, okay, it's you and your mom you're cooking for, and your dog who eats organic. How much are you spending at the organic market? But I have to say this before I even ask you this question. Everybody watching this, at some point in your life, you have to decide, I want something better, not cheaper. And I'm willing to give up something else to have this that is better. Does that make sense to people? Like, be willing to give up something to spend more money on something, because I got newsflash for you. It is very expensive to be unhealthy. You think it's expensive.
Oh my gosh.
It's incredibly expensive to be unhealthy. Okay, Robin, talk about the market.
And my mother will tell you that when we were children and she would take us to the pediatrician, we were never sick as kids because my mother cooked well. And also our pediatrician told her that if she would never turn the heat above 68, we would never be sick.
Wow.
Because hot houses breed germs. And so that's another reason I keep my house cold. And my mother will be 87 in March. She is never sick, never sick. And I'm never sick. Now, I did get COVID in 21, but, I was out and about without a mask and all that. So I guess my mother got it too. But we were fine, other than I lost my taste and smell. But you were right. If you eat healthy, you will stay out of the doctor's office. And it's a choice that you make. There's your famous word, but it is just a choice you make to eat healthy. I do not eat processed foods.
Well, and even 30 years ago, we were teaching kids in home ec, when you go shopping at the grocery store, avoid the aisles, just shop the outer edge. There you'll find your fresh vegetables. You'll find your meats. There you find everything that is healthier for you than something processed. And, it's so good to see the generation, we're in the boomer generation, the generations following us. My kids started telling me when they were in high school how unhealthy food was. And I kind of took offense at that because my daddy was a farmer, but you know, it wasn't his fault. He was just doing what the government told him he should do.
Right.
And this generation, these generations following us have figured out you cannot trust just because they say this. That doesn't necessarily mean it is true. And so I think this generation, the generations following us have figured out you've got to dig a lot deeper than what the TV says and the government says and all these other things. You're going to have to figure out a bunch of this on your own. And Robin, you did that.
Yes.
And it has shown in just how healthy you and your mom are. And you're an inspiration to all my viewers today. And I can't thank you enough. We'll put all these links up there. And like I said, I've seen almost everything in your kitchen at Tuesday Morning or at Home Goods or any of the places that sometimes sell.
Sure.
I have a whole cabinet full of that French heavy serving dishes. What is the name of that again?
Le Creuset.
Yeah. Whatever that word is that I can't pronounce. Robin, thank you so very, very much. I'm going to unpin you and I'm going to say goodbye, but we thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, Linda. You have a great day, okay?
Thank you. Well,
Bye.
everybody, this is fun. This was fun. So our next episode, you're going to learn how to make a pie crust. Okay, I know. I taught home ec for 10 years. It was chapter 29 in our foods book. We skipped it every time because Linda Toupin could not make a good pie crust. So my good friend Chetney Gelfis loves to make pies, and she's going to come in here and teach us how to make a pie crust. I know it's a little thing, but you guys, I hope you're loving these episodes, and thank you so very much for following Common Sense Choices. Be sure to share and comment. Your name will be entered into the drawing, and head on over to lindatoupin.com. Sign up if you're not getting the emails. And as time goes on, look for our fun little apron in my store at stuff I didn't know I needed. All right, you guys, thank you. Happy cooking.